Welcome to the home screen overview video. This video will just be walking through what you'll see when you first turn on your Ag Leader InCommand display. So first off, along the bottom of the screen, you have various operations. In a golf course setting, you'll most likely only need to access the application and the guidance operations. Application obviously is where you'll go to for when you're actually going out to spray. Each of the operations, when you select it, will lead you through a wizard step by step that will lead you through the setup required to get to the run screen. It will not let you go to the next step unless you're connected to the proper controllers that are associated to that operation. Obviously, I am connected to the controllers that would require us to actually apply product, so I could progress to the next step. If I press something like harvest, for instance, I don't have a harvest configuration set up, and I won't for a golf course situation, so I won't. It wouldn't let me progress to the next step either way. Guidance we'd be using for things like mapping boundaries and just mapping general coverage if we're not logging rates and using section control and things of that nature. Besides that, above the operations, we have the setup and the summary buttons. In setup, it's what you would imagine any sort of back-end setup that would be required. Here in the configuration setup, we have our configurations and products. We don't have to add them in here. The wizard, when you select application or any other operation, will lead you through that and automatically create configurations as you go, but this is where you can come to manage them and add new products if you weren't stepping through the wizard to get to the run screen. The next button here is the management setup. Here is where we can modify and change our grower farm field. And as you can see, we have an example golf course set up where our fields are fairways, greens, and tee boxes. The front 9 boundaries have been mapped out, so you have a preview here. Back 9 has not been mapped out, so there is no boundary preview. You also have access to season, which you wouldn't have to modify. Also, you can edit users and then change the business names. Moving on in setup, we have the GPS and guidance setup. You most likely won't have to modify any of the settings in this menu, but you do have, if you are steering with an on-track 3 or a steer command, this is where you'd go to specify that you are hooked up to, that you would like to use that during normal operation. And then the last button is more of our general console setup where you can change the brightness and the volume and the time zone and the language and things like that. And also our display where you can change the owner. Features tab lets you know exactly which features are unlocked and which ones aren't. Our Agfinity setup, which is our remote data transfer. And then also our advanced setup, where you'd most likely, the only reason that you'd go in here is to clear internal memory, but most likely you won't be having to access this area of setup at all. Also, we have the summary icon here where we can look at any past events just as more of a reference, where you can break it down by season, grower, farm, field, over time, and operation. You'd be able to view your map just to give you an overview if there was data that had been logged. And then up here in the upper right hand corner, if you tap the GPS icon, we have a few. These are mostly diagnostics. So we have our GPS diagnostics, where it'll give you the lat long. You can see how many satellites you're viewing at any given time. Also, we have CAN, so it lets you know which controllers are being sensed on the CAN bus. In a spray operation, if we don't see 2 modules like this, then that is an issue that needs to be addressed. But we also have some diagnostics for each of the controllers. This is our switch box. The auxiliary input modules are switch box. We have diagnostics. They'll show you which switches are sensed on, which ones aren't. And then also our liquid product module, as well as some various diagnostics under that. Moving on to data transfer. This is where you'd import, set up, and export onto a USB stick or to Agfinity, if so equipped. It's also where you'd come in to set up the Wi-Fi signal that you'd like to transfer any files via Agfinity. There's a separate video explaining the relationship of Agfinity and how that works in the system, and go ahead and watch that video if you're curious about remote data transfer. And we also have, in conjunction with Agfinity, one of the features is remote support. If we select, it will populate a code, or somebody remotely can log into your display, view what you're viewing in real time, and then walk you through any button presses that may be throwing you for a loop or anything of that nature. Oh, that was the quick overview of the main home screen. Thank you.